Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Citizens Chat Show this Friday afternoon. I am delighted to be hosting you on behalf of Damian Masesa, who will be here shortly, but for now, I am still here with you. And today we have a discussion that you all have been engaged in during the week. We are talking about women and the emancipation of women globally. We are still in the Women's Month. And of course, today I would like you to join this conversation. We shall be talking about women's empowerment and other issues related to women's digital rights. You're welcome once again. And before me is a panel, our usual panelists here, but with a new guest, a special guest who we are introducing to you. But allow me to introduce Micheal Aboneka on the extreme end, who is a human rights defender, a panelist, a frequent one here. And we are delighted, Micheal, here at Civic Space to have you coming back.
Yes, thank you for having me on this very important month.
You are in black in the Women's Month.
Yes.
Does that mean anything?
Yes, because you see, Black Monday is about fighting corruption. So this entire month, let's fight corruption so that mothers don't die, so that we have enough money for hospitals and enough money for jobs. Yeah, It will be a good thing.
That is a good one. You haven't given up on that campaign.
No, it's still on.
It's good to hear that somebody is still fighting as a human rights defender.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah,
that's
it's now a lifestyle.
Powerful. Yeah. And of course, joining us also is Honorable Obigah Rose, not Kanya. I have to be very clear on that one. I do confuse those two names. This is
so
Rose.
You start with Rose.
You start with Rose and end at Obigah.
Yes. That removes the confusion.
Honorable, you're welcome. Honorable is a human rights defender, ladies and gentlemen, and she's one of us. She's in the social justice movement. She's championing our cause in Parliament. I am looking forward to her work. She's a very aggressive leader in that space. She's also representing the Women's Caucus here. Isn't that nice?
Yes.
Wow. You're welcome, Honorable.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here. It's so exciting and interesting to be here. For some time, I've not been around, but I'm so happy I'm back and I'll always be here.
Very delighted to have you on this citizens space. Outside there, you can do other things, but here we engage with the citizens as well. And that's why we want to see more members of Parliament coming here on different issues and topics. Joe is next to Rose, our usual panelist. This one by now is a celebrity on this space. I don't need to introduce him anymore. But for the purposes of Honorable Rose, Joseph Ochieno is the president, I think de facto for U.P.C. I can say that comfortably because he says he's still in court over that appeal on his election. But I'm looking forward to the next one. Indeed. I hope,
No, it's fantastic to be here. Delighted to meet Rose. Rose's grandfather is a founding member of Uganda People's Congress.
Okay.
I was just touched that she mentioned Mzee Abanya, who was her grandfather a short while ago. I saw him shortly at his deathbed. I haven't been to his resting place. May he rest in peace. He's one of those founding people who founded the Republic of Uganda, built a powerful foundation for it. And they even founded the ideals of black that you're referring to.
Wow.
To say that in our colors, black is not about miseries, but about African brother and sisterhood.
Sisterhood. I love black and I love any color. A lot of my things have a lot of black in them. And anytime you see me in black, don't be surprised. That is profound. In view of NRM, solidarity. Again, she's in NRM, but very close to U.P.C.
You had to say that.
Well, I had to say,
yes.
Yeah, it's important.
Because her constituents are listening.
Yeah.
No, Jimmy, there's no relation between U.P.C. and NRA. Jim McKenna, my brother, went to NRA. We don't know what he's in there for. That is official. In the event that I'm president of the party, we shall formalize many of this understanding. But my relationship will continue with people like yourselves and everybody else. And I hope you guys come home. But those who don't come home, this republic is large
Honorable
enough.
Rose, you don't have to respond
this republic is large enough for us
on that one.
In political diversity.
Mother to all. All right, Sarah, you're welcome. And of course, our combatant, many of us women, you are leading this battle on the front line in terms of engagement on various issues of social justice. We are delighted to always have you here and always available, Sarah, for this kind of spaces. We want to thank you for that and welcome you.
Thank you, Honorable, and we shall continue to break the biases wherever they exist.
Yes, many barriers. This week, this month, we shall be talking about breaking the barriers, ladies and gentlemen, and that is the conversation we shall be having here. Of course, that is the buzzword going on everywhere. The talk is about breaking barriers and how can we push forward the agenda of women's empowerment. But in this discussion, we have identified a few areas which we think are still challenging. So we'll focus on that in terms of our conversation today, which is largely around women and the climate, you know, the conversation around that, and of course, digital rights. We could talk about so many issues, there are so many, but for this particular program, I think we can zero it around there. But to start this whole discussion, yesterday, of course, on 8th March, we were celebrating. And people are like, are we about celebration only in Uganda? Can we take stock? How can we take stock in terms of how far we have come as a country and what needs to be done? Therefore, the big question that people are reflecting on is issues of gender equality. Is there gender equality in any case in Uganda? Have we reached that point as we celebrate 60 years of independence in Uganda? Can we comfortably say there is gender equality in Uganda? Yeah, I think we can start from there. And I just wanted all the panelists to, you know, just share your perspective, your feelings about these issues. Yeah, even feelings are important because the discussion of women sometimes gets emotive for especially the feminists. When we see the many things, especially sexual violence, skyrocketing here and there, you really get emotive on why things keep going that way. But let me have a feel from you, our panelists this afternoon. Maybe Sarah, the way you are looking at me, you can relieve the burden off me.
It is not in bad faith, but I was looking at you, listening to you and reflecting really.
Yeah.
But as a bit of a background, you know, the Uganda women's movement is rooted in the struggles in the 1940s, struggles for inclusion, struggles for respect, struggles for association. Because before that, you know, it'd be like you are married, you stay in your home. Where is a married woman going? Are you a prostitute? Are you? So there were those barriers that they had to deal with. In 1946, the women came together, led by mainly the church, the women married church leaders, YMCA, and formed the first Association of Ugandan Women.
Yes.
It was later in the then they used that space even to negotiate for voting rights during the Lancaster conferences. Yes, so that's why even the issue of saying women, there was a situation women were not voting, now does not apply in Uganda because right at independence, women have their rights to vote, except that we had instances of electoral colleges, but they were not excluded, at least from that sovereign right.
Perhaps globally, that conversation had already peaked in terms of the right to vote.
Of course. Then the climax, I think, of that generational struggle was in 1966, when one of the, because among the Christian associations, Mothers Union, YMCA, there was the Young Wives Club. Then one of the young wives lost her husband and she was robbed of all her,
everything.
The estate. People robbed it. So the other women said no. They went to the church leaders, moved and said it can't be. This is she has children, she's young. Why are you throwing her on the streets? They were joined by the Asian women and they formed a big caucus and pushed back. But later, after the politics and then Idi Amin coming into power, the women got scared of the toxic
Which is always the case, I think. The women's movement
environment,
goes silent.
because we are going there now. And that goes to where the women, how come they are not engaging? Because there is a lot of toxic
environment.
Yes, in the political arena. So, but they kept organizing silently through for food security and other issues, because we need to know that the backbone of food security is thanks to the women, including the silos and budgeting for food in homes.
Okay.
So in 1985, during the Nairobi conference, no, before I go to 1985, I think the important landmark we need to pick is the Decree number 3 of 1978, where Idi Amin now introduced the Uganda Council for Women.
Council for Women.
Yes.
Not, I was going to say National Women's Council again.
Yes, it is. That's
changed.
the name. No, that is the name.
Okay.
It hasn't changed. It was introduced through that Decree number 3 of 1978. Then the peak, or the landmark, was the Nairobi conference in 1985, where women went to the conference, both state and non-state actors, and came with the way forward from Nairobi, or the outcome of the Nairobi conference, re-energized.
Absolutely.
This women movement and the likes of Akford and FIDA started sensitizing people. There was a bit of disruption, of course, 1980
with the war and
86. Of course, that was at the climax of war, with a bit of peace talks that were neither here nor there. In 1986, now in December, FIDA and Akford started mobilizing women at large scale. FIDA set up women clinics, legal aid clinics for legal empowerment of women, and they started moving into schools. Because my first interaction with the FIDA in 1992 in Bweranyanji was through this campaign that they launched non-stop, and they were visiting girls' schools, speaking to girls, speaking to women, all categories, and the women were on the move. We even wondered where they would get that time from, the stamina that existed at that time.
Wow.
Then, of course, we need to look at the 1995 Constitution, where we had the integration now
into the mainstream
of the Constitution, but also the Beijing platform of action. So from there, we have this arena of rights, legally protected. We have SDG 5 now on gender equality. We have Agenda 6 of the African Union Agenda 2063 and the amendment of the African Union Constitutive Act through protocol amendment
and the amendment
on gender parity. Yeah, so that's where we are today.
We've come a long way.
There are challenges, there are biases, and I will leave my colleagues now take on from that.
Wow, that is wonderful, Sarah. Thank you so much for giving us that background, the underpinning, both the theoretical and also the legal frameworks that have existed that support this whole conversation and the women's movement in Uganda here. And of course, having come all that way with these legal frameworks, with the programs that government has put in place to follow through the application of the frameworks that we have. The question before people now, the Ugandans, actually, because we see a lot of backlash right now going on. People seem to think we have dwelt a lot on women, so we should now take the conversation away and focus on the boy child. But before we do that, have we reached that parity that we can comfortably talk about? Do we have that gender equality?
What's wrong with the boy child?
Well, that's the conversation, because some people feel we have we've achieved much.
We are empowering the girl child. And
maybe I could actually have Michael, you take it from there. Do we have this? Have women achieved enough to now direct our attention elsewhere? Do we have gender equality in Uganda?
Thank you, and I love the background that Sarah gave.
Yeah.
And I want to start right away from there. When Sarah ended at 1995, I can pick it from there. You know, we have 35% of the women's seats that are in parliament. But I think for me that is hoodwinking. Can we see women go tussle it out, like Honorable Numbers, you go for mainstream, and we see whether you are able
to tussle
it out and come out.
Yeah.
Now that is a taste that actually we are going there. When you start creating incentives you discredit the general idea that has society transformed to recognize a woman. I still have problems. They are simple things, but they don't look simple. You still have boards that have a title chairman, but it's a woman on the board.
That has
Government
changed,
boards.
Michael, I think.
Up to now, they are still there. Check their websites. Those are small things. So people are flying in planes, going for gender parity conferences.
We are in CSW right now.
Yeah, CSW.
Yeah.
I hope they are in there, like discussing paragraph by paragraph, and they have not gone shopping. I have been to these meetings, and these guys just go shopping. You find Moscow, you find whatever, they're in the bathroom, and they are lobbying for a paragraph. When these guys go to represent us there, they go for shopping. What is it that they bring out? The other point is, for me, it's beyond the numbers. Now, 75% of our laws are gender, compliant. And I think the Ministry of Finance started the issue of issuing out the gender certificate. So beyond that, when we have 35% of women in parliament, what does that mean? Are they able to also speak out and their issues are listened to? They will say, you're a woman, you will speak last. There's a saying that ladies first when there is no trouble.
Okay. When it's all nice.
When it's all nice. But when the snake comes, they will ask the man to come and beat the snake. As vague as it is.
But also some men are saying, ladies first, but gentlemen shortly before.
Yeah, that's interesting. So these are interesting social constructs that are out there. Let me get to the point. Beyond saying Sarah is an idiot of an organization, and many are there, beyond counting that, is that, they think about gender equality. It's not women equality, it's gender equality.
It's gender.
That if your organization is 90% women, are men being left out? Because the thing is equality. Why do we like equality in offices, equality on the road, but we don't want equality in paying school fees?
You have gone too far from us now.
Yeah.
You want us to pay school fees.
So you are saying that it's a man's role to pay school fees, and that you are willing to sleep in a house when Yaka is finished because it's dark, because the man hasn't returned. But you're busy on some WhatsApp group saying we are women of valor or what have you, we are empowered. So how come you want equality in parliament, you want equality in the council, in the top things, you want to be driven in this executive car, but you don't want equality in paying fees. You want equality in paying bills. So those are the double standards. And lastly, for me, and I think this is what
not in Uganda.
Angela Micheal said.
I'm regretting why I had to bring Michael past.
No, it is good.
These views are there. We need to discuss these views.
Not known what's taking.
We need to discuss these views because you see, for me, it's just beyond numbers. The Rwandan parliament is almost 80% women. 65, what does it mean? Okay, what does it mean beyond numbers?
Okay.
I have something I'm writing called "We Don't Eat Numbers." Don't tell me about the GDP ratio and what have you, getting a few monies of Honorable Monica, and then you say Uganda is rich. Beyond that. The other thing is, people who are singing gender equality today, who have traveled abroad, they are still taking their letters of consent to get married in this 21st century. 40 decades after we started, the background to get married up to now.
From the parent.
From the parent. You are 40 years of age, you want to get married.
And you have to go and seek consent.
And the church is saying, bring a letter of consent. And they are complying.
Price. Yeah.
So after complying with the illegality and evil, then they come here and start saying, we need representation of women. But have women decided to say, this thing affects us? Lastly, an example. I'm in a court of a petition. There are about 3 laws in this country that actually promote child marriages. To the extent that one of the laws, if a child has refused to get consent, and the parent has also refused, or the guardian, you go to court, and court can actually give you a consent order by force. It's still on our law books.
It's still on our law
So what
books.
are the women doing about that? So for us, we've gone to court over that. It's a constitutional petition. And I'm sure the Attorney General has no response. But we want court to emphatically declare that the age of marriage in this country is this. So for me, beyond the numbers, beyond the events, colorful events, we are going to celebrate this all month, beyond the talk shows that I'm seeing that women are participating, can they come back after March, that they can continue in the discussions beyond just the event of March? So for me, that's what I'm looking at as gender equality.
Days of activism.
Yeah. So when there is no 16 days of activism, you can't see a woman. So can we deal with the things that do not dignify our lives as women? Let me end with Angela Merkel's. She was a former Germany chancellor. She said, wherever women are deprived of their rights and freedoms, wherever they are humiliated and abused, development is invariably limited. And that's true, because they are the backbone of this country. But you see, it all starts with you. Don't ask Sarah to fight for your women's rights. Fight for us, fight for us. But again, you're backbiting Sarah. You're backstabbing people. And then when the men are coming up and saying, okay, can we fight this together? You other us and say, these are women issues. There can never be teenage pregnancy discussion without the boys who are making these girls pregnant. You can't empower the girl for an unempowered boy. There is Chisakate for girls. Where is the Chisakate for the boys? So we'll actually be wasting time and fetching water in a basket. Gender equality means that boys and girls, men and women, there is an equal level of organizing, of accessibility, of understanding. People think that by having 90% women on top, they have achieved. Now, in mathematics, that is an improper fraction. Yes.
Well, I think Team Honorable Rose, Mike has made some very, very good points in terms of his submission. But there's something that tickled me from his submission. And he seemed to really take us to the epitome of what gender equality should be in the home, in the society, wherever we are, in terms of equality and balancing the rights. And I thought that he was taking me far away from where I am.
I was bringing it down to the people,
complaining. And I think that, Honorable Rose, should we now be thinking about those, I could say, rights, we could say, okay, self-actualization within the women's movement, you know, that equality in the home. Can we even talk about it when we are still talking about access of opportunities in education sector, in the health sector, in the financial sector, even in issues of land, you know, property rights and all that. So I think where he's coming from, yes, would love to get there. But can a woman claim for those rights when we are still dealing with the basics?
Thank you. Actually, I want to greet everyone at this point. I just came from Terego yesterday morning. I arrived here at 11.
In the night?
In the morning.
Oh, in the morning.
So that was yesterday. You can hear my voice is coarse, meaning I'm fighting hard to see how I can get the girls who are pregnant back to school, moving village to village.
Thank you so much.
And talking to the mothers to take over the babies. And those who are pregnant to go back to school the way they are, taking time to talk to them. Michael, when you say that it's men paying school fees, this must be an urban story. And how many people are in this country who live in urban areas? If you go by numbers, I can tell you it's a drop in the ocean. It's women paying school fees where I hail from. It's women who are digging. Agricultural business is for women. Men only appear when now we are taking produce. We're harvesting and taking it to market.
Buy radio and alcohol.
That one. Even the solar panels, you know, in my district, we don't have electricity.
The bridge, you have not crossed with the light.
Nothing. Actually, I think Terego is the last. When you
on the national grid,
on the national grid,
we should be the last.
We are the last, and we're the last district. You can imagine. I don't even have anything called tarmac.
Okay. You just sit when you come this
when
side.
I now jump this side. My car has never failed to break down when I'm in the constituency. I'm used to walking. Actually, I'm the most rural MP in that house.
Okay.
So I understand what a rural woman is. And we are the majority. When it comes to land rights, you have planted a lot of cassava or sweet potatoes or maize. Once harvest comes, the man starts claiming ownership. And once he buys a bicycle out of this produce,
you will never ride the bicycle.
So I can't really start talking about women equality. I'm still very far. We need to talk and sensitize and say, look, as you are the donkey, let's find a way to get these men on our side. If we can't beat them, we must find a way to win them. And as you win them, please get your share immediately. Don't wait for him to give you a share. As you are winning them, you get your share. It's a long way. Education-wise, women are still lagging behind. Because exposure is very crucial. I always I use myself as an example to my women. I slept in a house when we were growing up. When my dad passed on, we would, if you wake up to pray to God, you see Jesus direct because the topmost is shelter.
So you had direct access to Jesus.
You don't even need
you were a child then. You couldn't help yourself.
And Jesus should have answered directly to your petitions.
She's here.
I'm the firstborn. And, we would cover ourselves with papyrus mats. We didn't have bed sheets. I told my people, you can't cry for poverty here. Hey, we are poor. Poor what?
What do you mean by poor?
You have land. You have your hands.
Very resources.
Yeah, exactly. You have really to use energy to get out of this. Next time, I want us to relegate this to Terego. Let them see beautiful people like this. Then they know, okay, there's really another one.
We run record from there.
We shall go Terego.
So you talk when you are really with them. Women, Madam Sarah said it correctly, that women movement those days was so active. But these days, I don't know what is happening to women. For me, right now, I am not against my party, but I say what I see is wrong in society. We cannot condone corruption.
Yeah, that's why you were voted anyway.
What is hurting us most in this country is corruption. Even the few women who are in some positions cannot help us. They think it is because I'm in NRM that I am swinging, I'm swelling. No.
When that position is taken away from you, you go back to the same place.
You find them shouting in the corridors, trying to pin the prime minister. When they were there, they were all enjoying. So I hate hypocrisy. We really have to come out. You don't have to cry because you have been removed from a certain position. You have to be there because you are for the most vulnerable. We don't have bridges. We don't... once you see people talking about some project or program, they're all planning to eat.
Wow.
Just look at parish model. Yesterday we had Emyoga.
Today we have parish model. The other day we had women's
What is the percentage of women benefiting
from
this?
that?
You find thugs are arraigning themselves following such funds. Once it arrives there, they have already collected it. That's why Parliament has to sit tomorrow, Friday, and understand. Me, I don't understand parish model, by the way. Much as it has started. It was launched prematurely. The policy documents, you cannot fail to explain to members of Parliament.
But they rush.
You are rushing because you want to steal. So I think we all need to join hands and empower that rural woman. At least for us, we're somewhere. I have been a president of YWCA. I served twice as vice president. But how many women have gone through YWCA and are able to speak out and are able to empower the rural girl? People now think about their own children. They don't want to spend a coin on another person.
And go down there.
All is me. Now I'm a member of Parliament. How much can I do for myself
and my family?
They give just a drop in the ocean. How many girls have been empowered? Like I told all my girls who in Terego, so long as you're a woman from Terego, what have you done to another girl? You can't be here settled in Kampala, rolling yourself in chairs when other young girls cannot be pulled out. So how many girls have been empowered with this, they call it student loan scheme? It is again benefiting the rich.
Well, I think, Honorable, you're raising quite the expansive issues that are affecting women generally in the country. And that can show you how far we have come, where we are right now in terms of women's emancipation and empowerment. And I'm still trying to pick your mind. You say you're a rural woman, and all the issues you, of course, talking about are affecting that rural woman. But in terms of policy, we have already noted we are at 75% in terms of policy and you know, the legal framework. Implementation. Okay, yeah, I want to pick your mind. What is not working?
For example, the defilement cases, the very many defilement cases. If you go to prisons now, how many culprits are there? None, not even a single one. So how do you get rid of the vice? And how many people go down to the grassroots to talk to the rural people?
That's a good
like
point.
Members of parliament actually fear to go to the constituency because of the heavy demands. You arrive, every funeral is you, everything. People want fundraising. People want birthdays. Can you imagine? I have never organized a birthday.
Even baby shower, they want them.
You want a member of parliament who has never done for herself. For me, I talk to my people. I tell them, you have never seen me organize my birthday. Don't tell me about your birthdays. Let's do real things. I sensitize them. But of course, it's a drop in the ocean.
It's a drop in the ocean.
If every other person would get so aggressive, all of us, whether in parliament or outside parliament, we say this is wrong. We say no to corruption. The little money goes to the grassroots, would be out of this. By the way, the rural woman does not need much. Just to tickle her brain that you can get 10 iron sheets, you can get yourself a solar panel, you have light. Let's have light. Let's have a conservation, environmental conservation stove. Don't spend a lot of time looking for firewood. So maybe I can talk a bit about gender equity, but not equality. We are still far. We have moved a step. Yes, we have now members of parliament who are women. Can they get more aggressive? Can they be felt?
Beyond the numbers.
Beyond the numbers. When they are called to come and speak here, can they be available? Can they stand on the floor of parliament? How many women MPs have been in that house for almost a year? They have not even said a word.
We have not even said
a word.
And the men have said many things, but nothing in the submission.
So can we get aggressive and claim our space? Can we own it?
I am coming back to you, Honorable. Of course, you've made a very fundamental conclusion. We have equity. In other words, we are having more access to opportunities in the country, but we don't have that equality that Michael is imagining and aspiring to have. Perhaps that can be achieved in the urban families and a few of Ugandan families. Joseph, who has lived most part of his life out of the country in self-exile, probably.
Sorry?
How do you view these things? Women's emancipation in Uganda, how far have we come? Can we celebrate this far compared to other countries in the various sectors that we have?
You know, these things bother me very much. Hearing from my sister here and imagining Terego, I have barriers to attend in Terego and Yumbe, including that of Stephen Miller, who was U.P.C's permanent youth in the 60s at the U.P.C. National Desk. But also hearing about the disparities that we have in this country. And Rose, you know that within 8 years of U.P.C. government, we took the railway line from Soroti to Pakwach, including building West Nile to the rest of Uganda. I'm a political leader, but I also have reasonable intellectual debates. I tend to find it very difficult to say one or the other. On these issues, I'm a campaigner on women's issues. I'm a feminist.
Wow.
While I was away in most of my exile times, I spent a lot of time with women's groups. And I spent a lot of time with girl-child questions. I spent a lot of time on the question of refugees. I still insist that the biggest majority of victims are women and young people, and their districts, amongst the more deprived districts in the country, are the ones that have the biggest numbers. And when we look through the Refugee Week, rather the Women's Week, really the biggest of the women that we consider are those others that are most affected. But during the break, I was talking about the fact that my name was Ochieno, taken from the word Chieno, which is the positive part of Ochieno, which is women's dancing costumes. So I was lucky that my great-great-grandfather was in the early 20s campaigning around these issues, but around community groups, building community groups. And actually women nicknamed him Ochieno, the man of the Ochieno, the admirer of Ochieno, whatever the word, how it came, or the word Ochieno. Now looking back to before Michael was born, in the 70s and 80s, we had community development. We had community development centers.
90s.
Because you called me old. Community development centers. Community development centers were built genuinely and deliberately by the first U.P.C. government, the government of her grandfather, to speed up girl-child education, particularly the rural girl child who cannot go to the mainstream education, mainstream schools. My mother was a semi-literate, and she perfected her writing actually at community development centers in Nagongera. In the entire sub-country, I think it's only the one of the Nagongera which is standing. The rest are derelict. So talking about these things are very personal and very pertinent. But what I can say is this, that these are a matter of policy. I think before you came, I think you found me with a young lady, a PhD student in political science, and we're having conversation on many of these other issues. These things must be deliberately policy-driven. I talked about corruption. I really personally didn't even want to go there. But quite clearly, where are the political parties, where are the political leaders, where are the different kind of political organizations. But really back here, the burden really is on NRM. That's been around for the last 36 years.
NRM has made a case.
Granted, the nonsensical case that the NRM made was about the number of women which they put on top. In fact, they built it up on the U.P.C. numbers. And by the way, Rose, the first women's day celebrations in Uganda was nowhere to enter. It was 1984, Women's Day in this country, and 1985. And the credits are Mama Miria, the credits are Professor Mary Okwakol, the credits are the Bitamazires, and the credits I think are Mero Duka, who's Mero Duka Chan, a number of women. And there's another woman, a lady from Uganda, and another one whose name I can't remember. These ladies deliberately lobbied government, informally lobbied government for Women's Day. But beyond that, it linked with the 60s program, 60s drive, for the deliberate girl-child education. And the girl-child education was to attempt the eradication of poverty in rural places, but very much driven at women as the engine of this.
Yes. Joe, I want us to position this discussion in terms of the successes we have this far, because that whole conversation in the 80s. Yes, I know you're coming to that. I just want to reposition the conversation.
Indeed, I was coming to that. So that contextually was the background. And the background was, what was it? That over a period of time, there would be one, fast track in public service, but two, women would get opportunity, the Sarahs would get opportunity to go through Berenyanje, I miss you, go via Namagunga, go through the very kind of institutions, and actually actively compete. But also beyond that, they go to targeted spaces. What we want today are not numbers of women in parliament, but the quality of women, but two, the quality of women-led and girl-child-led issues. So I am continuing to campaign at Kisoko High School, where there is a secondary school that was founded in the 80s, but where there are over 100 girls queuing up for a pit latrine. Now this, for heaven's sake, this is a school which was founded, supposed to have been built completely like Nabesunsa, with the running toilets. But today, it still has one toilet for girls queuing up for it. I'm campaigning for that. We talked briefly about the environmental questions. Why should Terego not have electricity today? Rural electrification is not an NRA thing. It was a U.P.C. thing. As early as 1983-84, it was a START program. Why does it take 36 years to take electricity to
Allow
Terego?
me reposition the discussion in this way. I will give you more time just to reposition it, because in the 1980s, this is the question I also ask a lot of times. What has NRM done compared to what the other governments have done? But more specifically, in the 80s, the discussion on these issues, it cannot be NRM to be the first government to have brought about this whole discussion, because it was a global conversation. The question we should answer is really to unpack the benefits, the successes that NRM has brought on the table having taken power. And let's be fair. Let's give credit where there is credit in terms of gender, emancipation issues and all that. So that is what I would like us to reflect on.
I think they did the numbers.
Yes.
The NRM guys...
In terms of the sectors that we see, where have we made progress and credit to the NRM?
In terms of actually creating affirmative action positions in the Legislative Assembly, that they did.
Yes.
And you know, like Michael was saying, I think it's actually a risk that, Sarah, you and I, we need to begin to have this debate, that the issue is not about affirmative action positions. Affirmative action positions, so what? How many of the qualitative women are in the mainstream positions? I was actually going to tell you that in the very likely event that I'm a president of Uganda People's Congress in future, I would mainstream like in the Labour Party did, where they said that in every position, there would be alternating positions for men and women. And by and large, where there is any bit of a mismatch, it would be a woman who would come at the top, number one. Number two, how many CEOs do we have today? For me, a future U.P.C. government, the Bank of Uganda governor would be a woman. The governor of Uganda Commercial, the general manager of Uganda Commercial Bank, and shall reclaim Uganda Commercial Bank as a bank of the people, shall be a woman. So heads of boards and big organizations. You know, I don't want to say on the screen, I meet fantastic friends, actually, including the organization, many of them who are U.P.Cs anyway. Great ideas, but they push engines in government and they get frustrated. The Sarahs beyond CCG, why don't they be given the opportunity to drive the big agenda there? And there is global evidence to show that they see the 100 organizations, the organizations that are actually led by women, they tend to be prosperous. They tend to have the profits. They tend to have the stability. They tend to be the ones which are long-term sustained.
Absolutely.
Granted, beyond Uganda, the world is generally waking up to the reality of many of these other things. But for us in Uganda, particularly those of us who started many of these things much, much earlier, there's no reason why we can't do well with it. And Uganda's got another advantage. We've got the women who are the majority. We've got the young population who are the majority. One quick thing about the boy-child question. In the last 3 years, I have had to rescue 3 women. Middle-class, upper middle-class women, including one upper ruling class woman, from huge domestic violence in this capital, Kampala here. Domestic violence is an issue. The police is playing with it. The judiciary ought to be able to do enough.
Much more.
Political leaders need to be able to do enough. I know some people in politics who are part of these things. It must stop. Now, if it is the case that women who reached these positions, women of valor as they present, go through this kind of experiences. What about the average
one in
woman?
Terego?
What about the average woman in Terego? What about the average woman in Chinoni? What about the average woman in Kumi? And worse, what about those other girl child who are 16 and 17 who actually lived and blamed to go through that? It's a terrible situation. So this women thing is a policy issue. It has got to be did. It needs political direction. Do you know what? It's strategically, nationally, it is something that we have to be. You guys, you ladies, you've got me. I'm your partner.
Perfect. Thank you, our feminist. Of course, I think Michael is also a feminist on this panel.
I am, and I've actually been involved in many of the feminist discussions. And to make it interesting, I've always been alone, in those discussions, and I've always said, can we have many of us?
More feminist men?
Can I bring others so that you don't speak to the an absentee guy whom you're saying, he beats us, he needs to be in the room, and you tell him beating a woman is bad, and therefore this is how you should handle a woman.
Perhaps we need to put it into perspective that being a feminist is not a bad thing at all. It's just believing in equality or equity. Equitable relationships for women
people
and men.
People have bastardized it, and I think we need to get back to the point.
And it's deliberate, by the way. Just briefly, the bastardization of the feminism concept is deliberate. It comes from the right wing in the Americas. It has entered here through some kind of particular religious groupings. It is. And then we've got some chauvinist men who are not necessarily part of these things. They're pushing. And I also want to say within the political space, there are particular men in this country who have issues with particular political women like the Sarahs,
look, the feminist has come
and run with it. We know it.
Okay, Sarah, I want to take you back to the discussion we had earlier on before we went to this issue of feminism. I just wanted to pick your thoughts in terms of the progress, the narrative of NRM this far, because on such days like yesterday or the other day, they will always try to put forward what the NRM has done in terms of the health sector, education sector, and all these things. Can we discount and account for that time? What can you quickly say we can credit the progress on in these sectors? Say in the health sector, we have achieved this. At least we credit the government for that. But there is this yet to be done in terms of gender equality issues. Just freely thinking around that, and then we can move on to another issue. Otherwise, if we fail to point out those quick things, then there is nothing we are talking about in terms of progress.
I think for clarity, NRM did not introduce the women empowerment agenda in Uganda. The Nairobi Conference of 1985, where the women came up with the Nairobi Forward Strategy that led to the 1995 Beijing Conference. In 1985, NRM was not in power in Uganda. Women were represented through government, through NGOs, through private sector, and NRM was still in the bush. The women, yes, I'm coming, of course. I'm coming. So it was a global movement. The Beijing Plan of Action and the Beijing Conference was hosted as a follow-up of the Nairobi Forward Strategy, also as a global movement. But when NRM came to power and found the women organizing with their Nairobi Forward Strategy, they created an enabling environment for women participation.
Perfect.
So that's where their credit comes in. The women were given space to advance their agenda. The other second credit we have to give is the implementation of the decisions of the Beijing
Plan of Action
in the 1995 Constitution. Where again the women were given space.
One of the most gender-sensitive
in the bush. Part of the so-called liberators, they had women, combatants.
Like who are those people?
Yes, and the likes of Gertrude Njuba, the likes of Janet Mukwaya. Janet Mukwaya used to always be my favorite. The likes of, very authoritative. The first woman leader I listened to, other than my teachers, was Janet Mukwaya. She came for Women's Day in Bushenyi. I looked at this woman and I'm like, wow.
And she's still strong up to today. Very energetic,
very clear-headed. So even if NRM wanted to exclude women, the likes of Janet Mukwaya would not have allowed it. The likes of Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, who participated as part of the external wing in Nairobi. So the women were part of the struggle. Winnie Byanyima and the others. So they had to join fellow women in mobilization and organizing. But NRM should be credited for the enabling environment and policies, clear policies for women and empowerment. But where are we now? To me is the question, beyond the policy, where are we? We are challenging now the people, the goodwill, if the 1986 goodwill for women still exists. Why do we still have a third in the Constitution instead of 50-50?
Maybe we have outserved the purpose of that.
No. But you see, we have a CDG 5, which is clear.
And we have less than 2 years to
we are reporting. Even according to CIDO and the rest, we are reporting. So how are we achieving a CDG 5 in this country? How are we achieving Agenda 6 of the AU? How can you say you are outliving it when you cannot? Show the numbers or show evidence of implementation.
So we cannot comfortably sit back and say we have achieved so much in this government. Rose, I just want to pick your thoughts in that perspective. What can we celebrate as we were celebrating on May? Of course, you highlighted the challenges. Just to summarize this discussion.
Yeah, thank you. I first want to say a word to my brother Joseph. You see, you would not have found me in NRM if U.P.C was that rosy. It's all said about the death of my grandfather. They were not even there to help him in his deathbed. Yet the documents for the house of Obote were kept by him. He did not at all take anything. Now, we can't come here and speak so well about U.P.C. there is still a lot you go back and clean up. Yeah, you wouldn't find somebody from inside really in NRM anyway. So this speaks volumes. The family is so bitter. Somebody who kept everything for you, for U.P.C, and you can see us really spitting fire.
I'm glad you've met today.
Yeah, well,
I think that
and we even told them at the burial, we told them very well. But outside that, yeah, but NRM has done a lot. I'm a living example. If we continued with the State House scholarship only to pick the most vulnerable, would be very far. Would have empowered the girl child. There are so many girls who have been admitted to do human medicine and surgery, engineering. Their parents cannot afford. They miss narrowly to go on government. What is left is to put corruption aside, go and hold the live wires and work for the people. People should stop enriching themselves. For example, you have already built the Grand Imperial. You want to go and build the Munyonyo. People are greedy. People should stop greed.
And look out for the marginalized.
NRM has the will. By the president is a very excellent man. He wishes well. But people who implement are a terrible headache. Ugandans have become so greedy. I don't know why.
I think we have to bring you back, Honorable Rose.
But
how can be?
No. A slight comment on that. You know, it's a common narrative that the president means well. I know a country is larger than a family, but for purposes of demonstration, I want to put it this way. You are head of a family, you're being praised, you're rosy, everything is right. But when people open the door to your house, your children have no clothes, they are naked, your children have no food,
they didn't eat.
You are beating your wife, everybody's on the run, they look at you as a monster. Are you a good husband? Are you a good man?
Or father?
Is the praise matching with the action?
Well,
this is civil space.
I know.
And we protect. Don't be worried. We protect.
I'm okay with that point.
Yes, how come he cannot discipline his bad children?
Now the bad children.
What is that goodness?
Who are affecting social service delivery
This
for the
is
women.
now what is left to be done.
This
is what is to be done. It must be done if we are supposed to empower women and come out and say this is the country for everyone. Yes. And I've said yes, he means well, but there is a part that needs to be done. And even Ugandans themselves should not ever think they should be checked and chased like using dogs. You should have your consciousness telling you what you are taking is not yours. Leave it. Now, why should they all think it should be the president to come here? The president cannot be everywhere. Our consciousness should guide us and say, no, this is not mine.
Right.
And some are telling you, go and report to the president.
Who do you think you are?
And some say, go and report to the president.
You know, there's an African saying that tell me your friends, and then I'll tell you who you are. How come the most bad people are the ones around and closer?
Well, I have
do they even allow others who mean well to come here? Until we get will take
Poor Mr. Museveni.
Rosie, we are going to bring you back, Honorable, on a hotter debate.
I will always be available.
Spoil my on simpler matters of gender, but of course they link to policy and the general governance of the country generally. Mike, I just want you in 2 minutes to wind up this leg of conversation because we are going to another discussion after.
So in 2 minutes, I have a proposal, and this one I've said it before. Why are the people at the table fearing to push the discussions to the extreme, the political rule you talked about? I have said, can we rethink the legislative way of doing things? Let's do this. Let us go and say, resize our districts to maybe there were 40 or 50 and have 2 representatives, one for the women and one for the men. And that's it. Or we remove this thing of district representation or woman MP seated by that, which is an illegal vacancy. We are soon challenging it. So we say how many
city woman MP.
So how many constituencies do we have in Uganda? Let's say we have 50. Okay, I'm giving an example. And we say for every constituency there will be a man and woman. Simple. We will have 100 MPs.
We have 400 right now because there are 526 MPs.
We are going to resize that.
There.
We are going
300
to resize that.
Yeah.
If the political will doesn't, we have a plan. Because you see, one of the things I've been telling people that if I pay tax in this country, so I have a right to participate in the policy under Article 38. And that's why I started the hashtag Tosirika, because they had started telling people, oh, Sirike. No, Tosirika. So in the Tosirika campaign, we are going to actually resize that parliament. Now, once we resize that parliament to about 100, so at least the maximum should be 200. We say, man, woman, finished. Then we will have achieved, Uganda shall be even on the top, we shall achieve the so-called gender equality. Yeah, in terms of numbers, if that's what they want. At every level.
Yeah.
Okay? So that, because why is it difficult for them to have that conversation? Lastly, education. Honorable hinted about it. You know, we used to see education is the key to success, but to me, actually, education is a social security, especially for the young girls. How can we have over, is it 30,000 girls pregnant over the 2 years?
No, there are
on average, 2,000 per district.
600?
Yeah.
And 43.
Almost 1 million girls got pregnant during the 2 years. But where are the boys that got them pregnant?
They are there.
And the men, it's not
the
only
men.
boys.
Who are the boys
Fathers
and men?
uncles.
And the fathers and the uncles. Can we have the 600,000 girls that got pregnant and line up the 600,000 responsible victims? I mean, sorry, the perpetrators. And then we'll know that we're a serious country. Now, education is key. The reason that's why I'm in court over education, the right to education and school fees and regulation of, by the way, the ministry issued guidelines about teenage pregnancies. And they're begging schools, oh, please, don't chase the girls. How can a government that is seriously has a strong political will beg schools? You can't.
Allow the girls
we are saying,
and the head of school is the wife of the president.
Exactly.
It is absolutely wrong. It will not happen under U.P.C. And I say so, and it's official.
Yeah.
Well.
So as I conclude, education is key. Are girls able to access? You see, I've been saying we are focusing so much on the hardware of things. We've built a school. We have painted. Honorable comes and opens it. But the software of things. Are girls learning? How come in this country that condoms are still free and pads are not accessible in school? Can you imagine? And we are there saying, we're a government, we have been in power for 40 years. I have never seen any president in my life other than the one that is. So if the president is listening, does he love the girls? He has daughters. Okay? Imagine a girl in Terego dropping out of school because they have no pad. But people are putting condoms everywhere.
Wow.
For the boy child and the men to enjoy sex. And in this country, we are still saying it is okay, flying to whatever conversions.
To negotiate for
those monies, we should actually stop even these events and sort these things. I want the Minister of Education to challenge me today and say that we have a program, we have worked with partners, and we have supplied this number of sanitary pads. They should even be free. We can't, after 40 years in power, almost, still discuss issues of
I like your
pads.
discussion because you've gone right inside to deal with the real issues. We've not talked about the participation of women generally in issues of, agriculture, land. In Uganda, we have only 16% of women owning land.
True.
How is their use and all that? Issues of financial access in Uganda, I think 8% or so women can access financial services. So there is a lot we have to discuss, but time will not allow us. I would like
Can I just say something on education?
Break, then return. Probably.
Something on education. I think there is something also fundamentally wrong. This is very deliberate. The idea and the nonsense about state house scholarship. State house scholarship is not money from Rachitura. It's money from the pockets of the people of this country. I studied free. Mr. Museveni, had he gone through education under this current system, nobody would have known him beyond Barara. No, it was under a problem. So state house scholarship should be a national portal scholarship so that girl children
people qualify for them.
So that people qualify for them on merit, number one. Number two, if it is the case that actually we say we have a threshold for girls, there's a threshold for girls. There should even be a threshold for poor children. There's a free education at the time for post-secondary school if you're orphans. There's even a free education if you're twins. For me, I had free education because I was amongst the best in Bukedi. So I didn't even pay secondary school fees. That is the idea. By the time I reach Makera, I get paid to study.
Okay.
And Museveni got paid to study. Museveni should make sure that the children of this country, the future of these children of this country, are not blocked because of monies in State House given to people whom they know.
Well, I must thank my guests this far. This is civic space, and so we can engage freely. And of course, the names of policymakers will always be at the forefront because it is a civic space, and we have to, position these issues to the right persons who are responsible. I would like to call for a short break, ladies and gentlemen, and when we return, we need to tackle issues of climate change. We need to tackle issues also of digital rights of women, because those are very, very topical right now. We can't exhaust everything in this one conversation, but at least if we can handle that, we can call it a day. So let's go for a break, and when we return, we shall consider those issues.
The Citizens Chat Room happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV Online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
Welcome back, our viewer. This is Citizens Chat Show, and we are here, as usual, discussing issues that are affecting our society. And usually it is a topic along the week. And this week we are having a discussion, of course, on women's issues. And here we are having a panel just to engage in this discussion. What is your say? What is your take, as well as a person who is watching us this far? I would like to thank Inspire Africa for the coffee that we are taking on this program. And we are right here broadcasting from Coffee City, where we have unlimited space to engage and, of course, innovate. This is a space of innovation. Before we went for the break, I think we've lost one member, Honorable Rose, who has taken off to do some other engagement. But we still have a good panel to conclude the discussion that we have. And we want just to talk about digital rights and the women in that conversation. What it means for women now that the pandemic exposed the world more into, actually the revolution took the world into a different type of engagement in terms of virtual engagement, all the transactions, everything has gone digital, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore, we are in that conversation. How do we bridge the gap? Because in that discussion, there are women who are poor, the urban poor, the rural poor, those who cannot afford to be on digital connections generally. That's a conversation which is growing, and amongst many things that challenge women, I think this is one of the areas we need to pay attention to. So I thought we could pick our minds from you, our panelists, on that particular issue. And I'd like to give it to Michael just to start the discussion in that area. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable. And it's important to discuss the aspect of digital rights. What are they? And I always love numbers, statistics. So research has it that we have about 10 million internet users in this country.
In Uganda?
Yes, in Uganda. But how many of those are women? I want now to go deep into aggregating data. I need to look for that. We have over 20 million mobile phones in this country. How many of the 20 million
are owned by women?
You know households where it's only the man allowed to have a phone. There are some women, even in this town, that are even not allowed to work. They're not even allowed to have a mobile phone. Okay? And we're here and what have you. So that's why we had the conversation during the break and before the break, that it all starts from the community, from the family. If you can't allow a woman, your wife, your daughter, to have a mobile phone because you trust issues and what have you, but for you have three, one for office, one for I don't know what, you see them carrying 3 phones. But you can't even allow the woman to have a phone, that all men are going to go after her and etc. That's natural. So there are those social constructs that we need to deconstruct. Now, let me get back to the issue of the internet. Now, the thing about digital rights is one that you must be able to access it. The internet penetration in this country is about 37%. 36 years down the road. What does that mean? It means that if in Terego, schools and the pads are difficult,
To access.
do you think they'll think about internet for them? You think they'll think about computers for them? We have a whole ministry of ICT and national guidance. They want 2 billion shillings to guide the nation in terms of patriotism. But what happened to the free internet that they promised us? What happened to the free internet?
Education is supposed to go virtual.
Yes, education is virtual.
Yeah.
The Makerere students were protesting against the virtual teaching because the cost of internet is high. The 12%, now we have moved from OTT to internet tax, which is 12%. Now, let the telecom companies tell me how they collect the 12% tax. Because the exception is that if you're using it for academic purposes, research, and what have you. So when I'm buying the MBs, at what point do they say that the MBs you're buying,
for research.
This is for research, this is for email only, and not for WhatsApp and other things? But let me tell you, the internet cost in this country is the most expensive in the region.
In the Great Lakes.
Our 1 GB in Uganda costs about $20 on average. That's about 80,000, but it's 100,000, you know. In Kenya, it is $2. In Sudan, it is 75 cents in Sudan. In Tanzania, it is 75 cents. In Tanzania,
but the policymakers have all this information.
Yeah, I'm trying to give numbers because the always hide. We are doing well. Don't you see people have freedom on internet? But how many? Ask a boda guy today. Are you on internet? He will say no. Ask him, are you on Facebook? He will say yes. Because to him, Facebook is internet. Now,
but there is Facebook free, which is now blocked.
There is 60 out of the 10 million social media people on internet, 56% are on Facebook. That's a huge number. And Facebook is closed. And the government, I think, has forgotten even about closure of Facebook. But they announce their things. Parish model, even if Ghana police says keep safe on Facebook. But they're saying Facebook is closed. You have millions of money being lost. Like I've given an example of a brother guy. To him, internet is Facebook.
Wow.
And Facebook is internet. Now, where do the women come in? Once we still have these underlying problems, accessibility, availability,
the cost
of internet. Why should the cost of internet be the most expensive in the region? Just like power. Our power tariff is the most expensive in the region. Yet we export power. And the lines run over huts and houses that don't have power.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, celebrating the woman. So what is the woman? The woman shouldn't be bullied on social media. Same, of course, for men. But this whole chauvinism that this space belongs to us. That for you are speaking as who? The freedom of expression is a freedom for all.
For all to enjoy.
That when a lady, when a woman is expressing themselves on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, it is their right. Now, there's a lot of cyberbullying. There's a lot of intimidation. And yet, people are actually earning money using social media. People are tweeting, they call them influencers and the rest.
Yeah.
So if you have these underlying issues of pads, of cost of internet, how are you going to make sure that women access internet? Because without internet, now you can't talk about digital rights. So let's make this affordable. How come in Sudan, where we even have, where we have, emissions there, how come that the internet
is cheaper?
Is 25 cents 1 GB. And this country, Uganda, that seems to be progressive in the region, the internet cost is more than 20 USD.
Wow.
So how is that woman who is struggling, by the way, everything now is online. We have actually the court system now, starting last week, everything must be filed online.
Imagine. We
have the small claims procedure that if you have, matters below 10 million, 5 million, you don't need to hire a lawyer. You can go through small claims procedure. But now they are saying everything is going digital. So you must have internet, you must have a laptop and a scanner, because after
Signing
your
and
documents,
everything.
you must PDF them and then file. The other day we tried. The system had crashed. We could not even log in. Now you have a deadline to file a defense.
Wow.
But the system can't allow you. Now, how will the women access justice? If, one, the cost of internet is high, the accessibility itself, then this thing called internet shutdowns, what do these guys think about? The cost as a country, as a nation, that we incur for shutting down internet. You know, people missed their flights, hospitals couldn't function, operations went, haywire, and I know that unwanted witness and the rest. I don't know if this time around they took government to court, but that should be unheard of.
Wow.
And lastly, like I said, you see, this government is older than me. So
What do you mean?
This government is older than me. It's been here for almost 36 years, and I am below 36.
So you were born when Mr. Museveni was in state power.
Yes.
And you grow, you crawled, you went to nursery, went to primary, secondary, university.
Yes.
You're now this sharp brain, the leaders of the future.
And his husband and father.
And his husband, your husband, father.
Yes.
All right.
So this government is older than me. So I expect as an elder brother to listen to me. To uplift me, to listen, not to arrest me, not to intimidate me, not to say you're saboteurs.
And not to shut down the internet.
Yeah, that's what big brothers are for, to take care of the young brothers, to make sure that they succeed in life.
Who are young brothers?
I have many colleagues probably who have not had the opportunity. I went to those schools down there. I struggled through, just like Honorable Joe, okay? The only thing that I've not paid money for directly is tarmac. Okay?
Are you not paying
I was born in Ginger Hospital, but we paid for those kids. Okay? I've gone to schools, I've paid school fees. That's why I'm fighting. So what have I benefited from my big brother? That he's 36 years old, I am 31 years old. What have I benefited? So I have a right to talk about these things. Because do you know why? I give my big brother two things. I give him taxes and a mandate to serve.
Well, Mike has put out very, very important issues, and he has given us a very good perspective, Joe, on the positioning. First of all, the understanding of what these digital, issues are generally, and of course, the positioning of a woman. If the general population cannot even access it, what will happen to an ordinary woman who is less educated? And of course, the bigger question that we will have later on is how to address this digital divide. I don't know what your thoughts are in terms of this particular matter, just to pick your thoughts to inform this discussion.
This is scary, including the question of his age. If you put it if you put it in context, I think it tells you that we will have to dream very heavy to expect anything better from this government going forward. I'm a politician,
Hardcore.
but I've also done a reasonable study of political science. And I've engaged in politics both here and abroad. I can tell you politics is a question of cycles. I can tell you honestly, Sarah, that actually organized political parties, leading political parties, you can talk about Congress Party of India, you can talk about the Republican Party, you can talk about the British Labour Party, the Tory Party, the French Socialists, the German Social and Christian Democrats. As the lead political parties that can talk very quickly. These are parties that are solid. Even these parties get tired. None of these parties would go to power, spend 15 years, and their own members would say, we still have fresh ideas to lead or to govern or to provide. They normally would say, you know what? Let's give somebody else a try. Let's fresh ideas come. Let's go back to restock. So to consider that Michael was born after one parliamentary equivalent, after NRA came to power. Now Michael's parents are grandparents. You can think about what will come out of this. It's possibly not surprising that my good sister sitting here, Rose, fantastic lady, was suggesting that, except for possibly the people around Mr. Museveni, the poor old guy is a good guy. No, she was being very diplomatic. This guy and this government is genuinely tired. So for the women of Uganda and for the topics that you actually, the context that you give it, I don't know what can really be expected. I like elements of the past, not because of history, but really because of the future.
The future.
You know,
your future.
our engineer for this program is a fantastic young, beautiful lady. I like to keep on referring to it because of this program. That this program is
Do you mean myself?
targeted
Yes.
at the engineer, and of course you are
behind the
yes.
scenes.
So
Okay.
so you know, civic
Sarah
space.
is misleading me.
Civic space is no. Sarah is fantastically young, and I beat her by. Okay, I'll not talk about it. But several years, you know. So no, I'm saying that the future of this country, the youth of this country, I don't know what they can expect out of this, which is new. So worryingly, the community centers I was talking about was not about boring us with the past.
Yeah.
But these were spaces that were built deliberately by central governments that would go beyond political parties and organizations to be centers of excellence, centers of organizations, centers of learning, centers of lessons, centers of innovation, where people would go ahead and pick in new, fresh ideas to go forward. But those are centers mainly also which were targeted at younger people or more vulnerable people, people can't afford. I also remember that when I was growing up, you were going to be jealous, there used to be monthly films, cinemas at sub-county headquarters.
Wow.
Where the state would organize cinemas and film.
Educative.
Educative programs where people would actually go and watch these programs. The idea is basically to think to the future. Really, where we are, I mean, sort of, I don't know what else I can say, except the fact that I don't know any government on earth today that actually thinks innovation going forward and can say that we tax electricity, we tax innovation, we tax in education, we tax health, we tax your medicine, we tax your thinking, you know, and
we are now paying a road toll.
Precisely, and we tax your ability. We tax your ability to use innovation and technology in order to grow.
They even tax you for leaving the country, the departure tax.
Thank you. And then you even tax human and basic rights. Micheal was talking about how women abused by couples and men go to police stations to report. And they are told that...
To buy the forms and all that.
Buy the forms, not only that, but pay for our bicycles or for border to go and see the...
Arrest the perpetrator.
Arrest, actually investigate, not even arrest.
The crime scene.
Basically go ahead and investigate. So I don't know where this would be taking us. So generally from that point of view, I don't know. We thought actually, Sarah, I thought last year before elections, I didn't believe that actually these guys would tax social media. I didn't believe it. I thought that because they're friends of Anglo-America and the South Americans in the region, that they would think that they would get embarrassed and decide that, telecoms and those kind of things would be fancy to the West, their friends in the West, and then they would find it uncool, and so therefore tax. But no, really what they're trying to do is basically punishing the citizens. Look, they're punishing women who are least likely to get access to telephones, least likely to get access to this information, less likely possibly even to listen to radios. But no, they're actually taxing the women in another way. Earlier in the conversation, I didn't refer to where women matter most. Women matter most that they actually care because at the end of the day, they determine whether or not there's food to eat. Women matter most because they also determine by the end of the day whether or not children have got a livelihood of whatever nature. But therefore, general, women also matter a lot because they care whether or not their children have got access to education and therefore innovation and therefore ability to go through these very same social media things in rural places. I get.
Why does it matter? Because Michael grew up in a generation where internet was not even accessible. But look where he is now. Is it not possible for these children to grow without internet? I'm just being a devil's advocate.
No, it's clearly impossible.
Yeah.
Right now he's telling you everything is going digital. So how will the young people of today go digital? How will people apply for
Classes
jobs?
are digital now.
Classes are digital. How?
So you have to pay school fees, pay data, And then on top of that, lecturers are not picking phone calls. And what do you expect the students to do? So you've taken away the digital space. You've taken away the freedom square from them when they demonstrate against going online, and then you tear gas them and someone loses their fingers. So what do you want citizens to do?
That's why John said he doesn't want to know.
Indeed,
I want to know
actually,
what's
very important. Very important. Very
Yes.
important. Actually, the biggest worry is this. I was talking to a group of young people the other day. The biggest worry is this, that we will churn a generation and a category of graduates who will not be able to have a conversation with Kenyan students. Just think about it.
That's very important.
You know, and when they go beyond Kenya, you know, not Ukraine, when they go beyond Kenya,
Their
wherever
borders.
they go, you know, people just say, are these Africans? Who are they? They'll not believe they're coming from, because the rest of the world is up there and here we are.
Global village, so to speak. Okay, so I
Technological
think
illiteracy.
Joe is very emphatic about the general problem. The general environment cannot even allow us to have a conversation about how absence of internet affects the ordinary woman if the entire population cannot even enjoy this right. So then the woman who is at the up, you know, the lowest strata, he doesn't want to know even what happens to that kind of woman. I don't know what, Sarah, your thoughts are in line with this conversation. It's a difficult one. I can see already.
No. You know, recently there's a student who said that Uganda is good at talking the talk. But when they attempt to walk the walk, the talk, they walk a wrong one.
I saw it somewhere. Okay.
Yes. So you have a country with a slogan of steady progress.
Steady progress.
If you
Socioeconomic
were
transformation.
to go, yes, that socioeconomic transformation was the first campaign slogan I saw after the enactment of the Constitution.
So it is a
26 years.
redone over and over.
It's now redundant and maybe repugnant.
It is a value of NRM. So as long as NRM is here, it is going to
That
be
one and
socioeconomic.
modernization of agriculture.
Yeah.
The first post I saw of the president, modernization of agriculture.
Sarah,
But
which
let
was
me
here.
come. Yes, yeah, I know
Emphasizing
it's
the
not,
values.
it's not here, I know. Yeah, but when you look at the digital world and the components of the fourth industrial revolution, the e-knowledge, the e-commerce, and there is a general who likes saying that the world is governed by concepts. So just to do your two-pager, if it clicks, you are on top of things.
Just like that.
Yes. So you see where we are as a country. The policies don't match the talk. When we chill with the big boys, we want to feel big. Uganda is making things happen. But when you break down, you know the devil is always in the detail. When you break down the details of the sloganeering, you know, I was looking at Aboneka. The president said on Women's Day that all children who were born after he came to power should be NRM. And those who are not, they go to wrong immunization. So I was like...
I have an invoice. If they're able to pay, I have an invoice for the NRM.
Pay for your school fees.
So if they're able to pay for everything I've paid, then I will be.
It's like you owe their life to him.
It's
That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
Like everybody born after
We have no
1986.
choice. It was a privilege to be born.
Even to be conceived, it was him. So if you look at the details of how Uganda is faring in the going digital, I remember the migration from the digital migration on the televisions in 2016. Digital migration, your analog, your TV will go off. Then we are there paying. So that digital migration, if we go to the other sectors beyond TV, paid up TV, and then free to air. If you go to the education, Mike did mention the internet tax. Government deceives people that they exempted education and research. But how do you know who's doing research? And where do they buy that internet?
From one point.
That is free of tax for research?
They will tell you we have.
No. Why is it sold?
Position. It is.
No. Wait, Monica. You see, if it was real, they would be like, whoever is doing research, register here, and your internet will get 30% discount. Whoever is doing educational purpose, register here, and your internet will have 30% discount. That's what it means in practical sense. But now they could be saying that maybe when Makere is buying internet for Mac Air, which never works.
Is free.
Each time I have never logged on successfully. You say free internet, Mac Air, connect.
Yeah, which is wrong. Because you see, the thing about internet and digital rights, it's personal. They can't say, now, if you want to research and want free internet, only go to Makerere.
But even it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
My point is, it doesn't work. Even for the students, they have to buy MBs.
They have to buy MBs,
for their research.
Can you imagine?
So they should have said, whoever is doing this, register here, and then 30% is paid by government.
Okay.
So that doesn't happen. We had 2 years of privileged children studying on Zoom.
At home on Zoom.
Because it's not all children of Uganda that studied.
Because even others didn't get the radios.
We had to get a minimum of 50,000. Spend a minimum of 50,000 per child.
Per child.
To study for 5 days.
Per week.
Internet. Very expensive under lockdown. So if you go to the detail of hospitals, do they have where the discounts to get a discount for health? All the medicine prescriptions and everything, doctors are always on Google. I mean, the world has gone digital. So they pay heavily, shutdown of internet. They reached a time and said hospitals cannot work.
So actually, they lied to us.
Yes, of course it does not exist. It does not. So you have these things that have no implementation framework. They're just mere rhetoric in the policies to make citizens feel good. When we go to accessibility, because what are these digital rights? As Micheal said, you must be able to have internet access. We know that now internet is the biggest platform for freedom of expression. But you can see what is happening to the freedom of expression on internet in Uganda with the Cyber Computer Misuse Act and cyber harassment by the state. State cyber, because we have cyber harassment by internet users, but we have state-instigated cyber harassment against activists, against opposition in Uganda.
They just shut you down.
Internet is you have a right of identity on internet. But we saw when Kakwenza's account was suspended. A fake account emerged, I think 2. So does he retain autonomy?
The state doesn't control those accounts.
No, I know. But you see, these are the digital rights. Whoever controls...
The state must protect.
Yes, the digital rights. Whoever controls, now that's another matter. Because I know even Uhuru Kenyatta closed His Excellency, closed his account because of another account that was
copied.
Yes. So we have these threats to enjoyment of digital rights. But also there's a right we underlook. Is the right of an internet user, their identity and the contents after death. I know that Facebook has a provision for you to sign in another person that can have access to your account, and even when you are deceased, there are provisions and you can use them. But do other platforms make use of those?
No.
So we have all these threats, nationally, international, and otherwise, that we must be concerned with, but specifically for the women.
For the women, sexual harassment.
Then, no, leave alone sexual harassment. How many women have the technical competence to use internet, to use digital tools? We have digital tools for agriculture.
That is
we
real.
have digital marketing tools. We have digital tools for agricultural inputs. We have digital tools for advice, the technical advice for agriculture, because I'm referring specifically to agriculture, because majority of women are in the agricultural sector. So what is the technical competence of women to access this information together with the rest of the population. Financial literacy, technical capacity to use internet and digital tools, and how the percentage of women that are left behind in the digital divide. They are the biggest
Joe said he doesn't
victims.
want to know because it is overwhelming, perhaps.
Yeah, but you see, as people discussing the future, we might, somebody might say, these people are always like prophets of doom. But we must do the shock therapy for Ugandans to wake up and know that in most of these things, there is nothing to celebrate and they must work hard to restore their country.
You have done justice to this topic, I think, and personally, I am challenged. Digitally, I mean, my rights, I'm not exercising them fully, even at my age, and with this exposure that I have. What about the ordinary woman? Of course, I know you've not even talked about, Michael tried to talk about the issue of sexual harassment, women being objectified. Now women, you know, generally.
Imagine like the threat of nudes.
The threat of nudes.
How come we haven't seen nudes for a man?
So therefore, really, the extent to which they're completely...
We'll ask the men to... But I think...
But I want to close this
the extent to which they're excluded economically.
So something quickly on that.
Just 1 second.
In 1 second. Again, it goes back to the issues. If a man can't allow you to own a mobile phone, can they allow you to go on Facebook and interact with your OGs and OBs and the entire world? But also as women, we are crying, they're objectifying us. But it's you who goes in that studio, you take those pictures and you want to appear on that billboard.
What is the use?
Together.
What is the use? Who has taken nudes to appear on a billboard?
Not nudes.
Pictures.
The whole thing of objectifying of a woman. You know, all adverts must be a woman. But are they
Who is
dressed?
simply dressed?
Are they dressed? So I think that we also owe ourselves a duty.
Michael is starting a new
and responsibility.
I see Michael starting a war here.
No, what I'm saying is that
you be clear.
is that these billboards we see, those people on those billboards, they didn't coerce them.
But they are also men.
They were not under
Talk
duress.
about the nudes.
No,
Sometimes they are taken even together.
So that also needs to be looked at for people to generalize and say objectifying of a woman. So who takes you to the studio? They're even models, they even paid money.
Let me correct you. Maybe Sarah,
to me is that before we start asking people and accusing people that you're objectifying women, the women themselves must stand up and say, I am not an object. Same for bride price. Do you know the people who are fighting Honorable Mutuzo on that proposal? Majority are women. Because on the village, people must hear they bought you 50 cows.
Can I also conclude on the responsibility of men? On this topic and this week of women, I am saying that we must have a campaign, possibly led by men, to end domestic violence. And domestic violence must include the possibility of a woman who has to make a decision whether or not to have a phone, because some man is going to determine whether or not she uses a phone. I think it's extraordinary. And especially that link must be steadily linked.
I want to clarify on Michael's issue. Michael objectifying women is different from what women do for a pay. If a woman's profession is a model, and there are also male models.
Male models as well.
That is different. And it's a profession. And we have celebrities all over, including Naomi and the rest that do it for a fee. That is
I could also be accepted payment for billboard.
Why not? My Twitter handle is @Ochieno. Come on, I'm applying.
It is a job and we are not coerced. And if I'm the marketeer, because I did marketing, and this is what I want to market. Maybe it's a skin product, maybe it's a woman's wear, and also to underscore the fact that women have autonomy
of their bodies.
What we are condemning is, I know if somebody can say, why do girls pose for nude photos? But for what purpose?
Choice.
Why did I do it? If you take my photo as my boyfriend, and it is part of our romance, what gives you authority to make it public? And the laws then that are tilted, that punish victims.
They punish the victim.
You take my picture in a different setup for a different purpose.
And you bring it
to the public domain. The law punishes me, whose picture has been brought to a public space, instead of you, the person that brought it to the public space.
Yeah.
That is also a bias.
Well,
And
we
that's-
have
and that's
tried to
what's-
provide for that in the Sexual Offences Bill.
No, we don't even need
the
the Sexual Offences Bill. Under the Data Protection and Privacy Act, anyone who leaks those whatever, the data can be held responsible. There are fines there, and you can even go to imprisonment of, I think, 6 years or something.
Okay.
We have a periphery of laws. Actually,
So it's a question of enforcement.
that protect, not even enforcement. Do people know? There is a proposal by Honorable Sereko. I've done a legal commentary on that, where they are trying to. One of the things I find not good is if you share any information, if you just share this link, if you share this whatever without the person's whatever consent, then you should be liable. But we already have laws, the data protection and the defamation. Okay, so people need to not be bogged down. And the problem is, who is leading the investigation? Man. Whom are you reporting to? Man.
Of course.
Even in court, the whole system, conducting a vial dia and all those things. You know, who are the censors, the most available? A man. So we have to cascade down the entire system.
That's why we need reform in the law.
We are here and we are pushing for, and the law is there. Yeah, the data and privacy law was signed in March 2019. How many people know that there are even regulations? So we need to make sure that we use this. Don't feel victimized. The laws are there to protect you, and use them.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have not covered 2 items, but we are not going to go to them now. Time is against us. I would just like us to wind up. We will come back here on the discussion of women and land rights. And of course, climate change is a big discussion. But I know out there's a lot going on. But maybe Civic Space should give us more time to have a conversation on those issues. And importantly, the inclusion of women in the economic sector, women's inclusion, in the financial sector. It's a big discussion. Money is power. Money answers all things. But where are the women in the money sector? I think the team here should help us have a discussion on that another time. But because of time, I would like us just to make a few comments in terms of recommendations as we wind up, or any other issue that you can wind up with to our audience. And I'll begin maybe with Joe. You had already started winding up in terms of.
I thought I'd actually wind it up. All I was simply saying that domestic violence is a crime. It is criminal. It's dirty. It is something that must come to an end. And I believe that domestic violence is something which, if any man practices, I think is something that should be exposed so much that it becomes a cultural disgrace, that we begin to say that family is a family that commits domestic violence. So nobody's daughter should go in that family again. And I'm saying so serious. But number 2, that possibly this is something that should be led from the top. And so therefore, the police should take it much more seriously. And that becomes a policy issue that we all know that domestic violence is a no-go area, almost like terrorism. But beyond that, I think everything we're talking about is a leadership question, political leadership question. It needs political goodwill that from the top, that we have a nation that invests in education, invests in health, invests in agriculture, invests in the areas that concern and protects women, and ensures that the policy and regulatory frameworks that are in place to ensure that these things are translated, so that we have the possibility of the Bitamaziris of this world governing this country, the Kadagas of this world governing this country on the basis of the privileges the privileges that U.P.C gave them in the 60s to grow up at racist scale. So that made it possible that today
the place of woman is not to deputize.
No, it's not to deputize. That's correct. That to make sure that we have young kids from Chinoni, young kids from Mukura, having a possibility to become presidents of this country, not assistant presidents like we do have these days. Thank you.
Or upcoming presidents for years.
Thank you very much. Michael?
I think for me is that, one, let us allow the conversations. Let us allow debate. The country's democracy, civic space is the bedrock of any democratic society. Absolutely. So they shouldn't lie us when they say the Uganda is democratic, when they can't allow talking. But also there's a problem. It's a monologue. At what point does government give us feedback to the issues we raise? We need the feedback. You know, we've talked about parties for a long time. Do they even hear us? They do. but can we have feedback? The time they waste in intimidating us and the rest, can they buy at least a pad for a girl? Management of digital rights. We want to see U.C.C have a tribunal in place. There's no tribunal. So when the issues happen, people abuse processes and what have you, there's no tribunal. The media council is not fully constituted. And then that's the problems you're going to have, that you'll have people abusing the law and doing whatever they have because there are no things in place. Since 2013, and there's no tribunal. And what are people doing in their offices? So maybe I think we need to be serious. Free internet in Kampala, what happened? And free internet in the country, what happened? Lastly, is that men should not beat women. And likewise, women should not beat men. I know some men who say they are biting us. Why? Why? You see? So let us stop beating and biting each other. Because you see.
But how does a woman bite? Is it in an aggressive manner or self-defense?
That's another question.
In fights. So let us stop beating and biting each other.
All right, Michael, I know you'll come back here on many things. I didn't want to spoil your submission because if I had said something, we would go back to another debate and we don't have time on our side. Sarah, can you wind up our discussion today and we get out of here?
Well, the theme for this year is break the bias. We have dealt with a few of the biases against women. There are so many biases out there. When Uganda talks of 32% of the population that is outside the money economy, the biggest part of that 32 are women. When you talk about teenage pregnancies and teenage mothers, the boys are able to go back to
continue with their education,
but the girls have to stay home and breastfeed and take care of the babies.
And struggle to get what to eat.
Yes. When we talk about leaders of institutions, we have only 2 women leading banks. That's Uganda Development Bank and Stanbic Bank.
And Finca.
We hope we can have a governor.
Finca Uganda.
Yeah.
Okay, that is the third one, but that's not a major bank.
Yeah.
But now, what percentage of that are the men? When we say the world has moved on to gender parity, and that is very simple mathematics of 5-5.
Yes,
an equal world is better world. Michael did raise a few important comments at the beginning that we didn't discuss. What is the behavior of empowered women? I know there are few. In my estimation, I think we have like a third of women
who are empowered.
Yeah, who are empowered. But what is the behavior? If you can comfortably, a working woman, you can comfortably sleep in darkness, claiming that your husband did not give you yak. I think that is a big issue that we must interrogate. Because if we are saying half is a better world, where is the other half?
Contribution.
Is the other half about being rosy, about enjoying themselves? Where is this equality at the smallest units? How do we translate that to make empowerment really meaningful? And even, for the men to support and work for. Because if you are in a family and your wife is working, but you give her money for fuel every morning, you buy for her everything, including Vaseline, and you cannot ask about the money that she works, can you claim to be equal in that family? So I think that is also a conversation. But since that does not touch the majority of the women, that's why maybe it's not on table.
It's not on
but
table.
It's not that we are not concerned.
And it needs to be discussed.
Yes.
I hope
so
as
I conclude,
yes,
gender equality is smart mathematics, but the women must take up the wheel, drive up the road, and create an equal society.
Can you say that again?
Gender equality is smart mathematics, but the women must take up the wheel, drive up the road, and create this equal society.
And create the equal society. She has put it very well, but I would like to add that the men must be together with the women.
Of course, they are not alone. And the men are supportive.
And the men are here.
The men are here, but normally when you go to the detail of this empowered woman, you're like, okay, what is the value addition? What is
what
the
are you
value
empowered
addition?
for?
Okay.
Yeah.
This has been a very sweet discussion. Certainly, I am finding it difficult to end it, but Sarah has put it very well, and I cannot even manage to restate what she said, but I would only like to emphasize the last part of her submission, that men and women, I add the men, because I've seen many men coming on
we
board
need the men.
in this
We
discussion.
need the men on board,
Yeah.
but we must also show value for the empowerment.
We must show value for the empowerment.
It shouldn't be for self-enrichment.
And self-enrichment, but value.
Value.
Okay, my panelists have done a very good job. I cannot even attempt to again add anything on top of what they have said. You have been a good viewer. I want to thank you so much for following this far. Thank you for the MBs, the expensive MBs that you put in to watch these programs. Hopefully soon we shall go live. But I would like to sign out from here until we catch you on the next program. We thank you so much. Continue following us and having that conversation and discussion on our media platforms that we are all in. Thank you so much. Shalom.